Celebrity engagements are often seen as promises of forever, but sometimes, even the most publicized relationships don't make it to the altar. In this list, we'll walk you through 23 celebrity engagements that were called off before they could make it down the aisle. Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck, one of the most famous celebrity couples, finally proved that love can withstand the test of time. They called off their engagement in 2004 after 2 years together, but they reunited 18 years later and finally walked down the aisle in 2022. Jude Law and Sienna Miller got engaged in 2004, but in 2005, their engagement ended when Law admitted to an affair with their children's nanny. Despite the public scandal, the couple tried to get back together in 2009, only to break up again in 2011. Their roller coaster relationship became one of Hollywood's most talked about. Pete Davidson and Ariana Grande took their whirlwind romance to the next level in 2018 when they got engaged after just a few weeks of dating. However, by October 2018, the two called off their engagement, leaving their fans heartbroken. Their short-lived romance became one of the most talked-about celebrity breakups of that year. Demi Moore and Emilio Estevez got engaged in 1985 after meeting on the set of St. Elmo's Fire. The couple had an on-again, off-again relationship and even set a wedding date, but they ultimately ended things in 1987 and their engagement was called off. Despite their breakup, they both went on to have successful careers. Johnny Depp and Jennifer Grey's engagement in 1989 was short-lived. The couple called it off just a year later, marking the end of one of Hollywood's quick engagements. Despite their breakup, both Depp and Grey continued their careers, with Depp becoming one of the most recognizable actors in Hollywood. Johnny Depp and Winona Ryder also shared a brief engagement. The couple got engaged in 1990, just 5 months into their relationship. However, by 1993, they parted ways before they could make it down the aisle, despite their passionate romance. Kiefer Sutherland and Julia Roberts had one of the most memorable breakups in Hollywood history. They got engaged in 1990, but just days before their wedding in 1991, Roberts got cold feet and canceled the ceremony, leaving Sutherland heartbroken. Their story is a classic case of a runaway bride. Sutherland would go on to become a beloved TV star in 24, while Roberts became an iconic figure in Hollywood cinema. Brad Pitt and Gwyneth Paltrow were in love in the early days of their careers. They started dating in 1994, and after 2.5 years together, they got engaged in 1997. However, they called it off just a few months later, shocking their fans. Jennifer Aniston and Tate Donovan were together for 3 years before getting engaged in 1998. However, they called it off, and Aniston quickly moved on to her next high-profile relationship with Brad Pitt, whom she married shortly afterward. Aniston later became a global icon for her role as Rachel Green on Friends, while Donovan focused on his acting career. Sandra Bullock and Tate Donovan also had a brief engagement. They were together for 3 years before breaking up in 1995. Though their relationship ended, Bullock went on to become one of Hollywood's top actresses. Ryan Reynolds and Alanis Morissette were engaged in 2004, but after 3 years, the couple decided to call it quits in 2007. Their engagement was one of the most talked-about celebrity splits of the early 2000s. Afterward, Reynolds moved on to marry Blake Lively, and Morissette married rapper Soleil and had children of her own. Sean Penn and Charlize Theron seemed like a perfect power couple in 2014 when they got engaged. However, just a year later, the couple called it quits, shocking their fans who thought they would go the distance. Hayden Christensen and Rachel Bilson's engagement, which began in 2008, ended in 2010 after 2 years together. Despite a brief reconciliation, they ultimately split for good in 2017, marking the end of a long on-and-off relationship. Lenny Kravitz and Nicole Kidman got engaged in 2003 but called it off shortly afterward. The two, however, remained close friends. Kidman later explained that they both stayed on good terms due to their mutual respect and friendship. Katie Holmes and Chris Klein were engaged in 2003 but broke up in 2005. Afterward, Holmes went on to marry Tom Cruise, and their relationship was one of the most famous in Hollywood at the time. Holmes later found success in her acting career and became a well-respected producer and businesswoman. Lance Armstrong and Sheryl Crow got engaged in 2005 after 2 years of dating, but their relationship ended less than a year later. Despite the breakup, both went on to continue their successful careers. Armstrong faced controversy later in life with his doping scandal, while Crow continued to inspire with her music and charity work. Jennifer Morrison and Jesse Spencer had an on-screen romance in-house that mirrored their real-life relationship. They announced their engagement in 2007, but they never made it to the altar, calling it off the same year. Despite the split, they remained professional partners on the show for several years. Mary Louise Parker and Jeffrey Dean Morgan got engaged in 2008, but their relationship ended just 2 months later. Despite the split, both went on to become successful actors in Hollywood. Mary Louise Parker later became an iconic TV star with Weeds, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan went on to become a fan favorite in The Walking Dead. Jason Trawick and Britney Spears' engagement lasted over a year before they ended their relationship in 2012. Spears later commented that they would remain friends, but their romantic relationship was over. Spears later went on to have a high-profile relationship with Sam Asghari. Big Sean and Naya Rivera were engaged in 2014, but they broke it off less than 6 months later. The breakup came as a shock to their fans, but Big Sean said that it was a decision made after careful consideration. Sean later went on to date other celebrities, while Naya continued to build her career before her tragic passing. Nikki Bella and John Cena were one of the most famous wrestling couples. They got engaged in 2017, but just days before their wedding in April 2018, they decided to break off their engagement. Despite their reconciliation a month later, they broke up again in July 2018. Nikki Bella later moved on and found love with Artem Chigvintsev. Maggie Q and Dylan McDermott got engaged in 2015, but after 4 years with no wedding, they called it quits. The couple's relationship had been a subject of interest for fans, especially due to their roles in the Stalker TV series. Maggie Q continued her acting career while McDermott stayed active in both TV and film. Shailene Woodley and Aaron Rodgers got engaged in 2021 after a brief romance. However, the couple ended their engagement in 2022, surprising fans who had thought their relationship was solid. Shailene Woodley remains a successful actress, while Rodgers focuses on his football career. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a comment, like, and subscribe for more celebrity stories.